Hello, I'm teaching artist Lauryn Welch, and I am here today with Professor Lieu and fellow teaching artist Rowe. And today we are going to be talking about how to package and ship your art. If your studio habits need a kick in the butt, Art Prof is everything you need: critiques, tutorials, and pro development. So, Clara, what reasons would you have to package or ship your artwork?
Lots of reasons. For example, if you have an online shop, you have to ship your stuff to your customers. Sometimes you just have to store your work in a way that is not horrible. And other times you're having an exhibition at a brick and mortar gallery, in which case you need to take the work to the gallery and drop it off there. So that's a lot of different reasons to want to package your work. And it's challenging because every artwork has to be wrapped in a completely different way. Like, Lauryn, tell us what this is from.
Oh man, so some of you may know I had a fancy show at a brick and mortar gallery in Chelsea, New York, like in Manhattan. And so I was very concerned about making sure that those artworks were all dressed up and looked super professional. I came in with this, I wanted to make it look like I really knew what I was doing, have that veneer of professionalism. So I really took a long time making all these corners, labeling everything, packaging it up 8 times. And I think I made a good impression. I hope I made a good impression. I don't know. Alex, do you go through a whole rigmarole with packing your artwork like this, or are you a little bit more all over the place?
No, you nailed it. It's that kind of the bow tie for your artwork, as it were. It shows that professionalism. And for mine, a lot of it has been shipping to people who will buy the painting. And you don't want them to just, I have this horrible nightmare of like someone throwing it over their fence, it lands in a puddle, and it's just a painting like rolled up in newspaper. You know, you want to convey that professionality like you know what you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like there is this, the packing of the artwork is super important in the other person's, the buyer's perception of the value of that artwork. If you just schlep it over in your car unpacked and you give it to them, they're going to think, wow, how much did I pay for this? Is this worth it? And they might not even take care of it as well as they should have. Whereas if you put it in very fancy material, they think, wow, this is super special. This is a treasure. Like, Clara, I'm sure that you're super professional in your life. Is this something that you also use when you're shipping your artwork?
Oh, absolutely. And people notice, because you can leave reviews on people's Etsy shops, and there are a lot of comments of people saying, yes, it was very well wrapped. I was very pleased. It's really important. It's a big part of the process. Even things like what we're calling shipping etiquette. Alex, what do we mean by that?
I think it's about that final transportation to the hands of the owner or the buyer of the art. And it's about using every last detail to not only protect your art and protect for them their investment in it and to translate that it is worth that value, but also to convey that you're glad that they got it and show your thanks and your gratitude and potential open the door for them buying more artwork from you. Or if it's a gallery, continuing that business. For the etiquette, I always love to include like a little thank you note or a note or even like a hand-drawn little doodle on the packaging I make. So it doesn't have to be boring. In fact, it should show some of that character that makes you you, but never forget that the whole point of it is to protect.
Let's talk about shipping companies, because there's many you can choose from. There's just 3 up here: US Postal Service, UPS, FedEx, at least in the US. These are a lot of the shipping companies that are very common. So, Lauryn, how do you pick? Or do you use all 3? What do you do in terms of shipping companies?
I haven't used UPS so much, but I've definitely used FedEx a lot when I was working as manager at the gallery and shipping stuff. It was just a very reliable company. Personally, in my own life, if I'm shipping smaller stuff, I'll use the the United States Postal Service. They tend to be cheaper, less expensive, but I have had a few problems with losing things in the mail over the years. And I haven't had that same issue with FedEx, but FedEx is ridiculously expensive. And I'm thinking now that I have larger things that sometimes need to be shipped, I'm looking into private or smaller shipping companies that are meant for artwork, which are a little bit less expensive than FedEx.
Alex, what do you use when you ship?
I use mostly U.S. Postal Service, and the reason is because, and I'm glad we're all talking about it because our work is of varying sizes and mediums, because for the past several years, the artwork that I've shipped has been no larger than, say, 18 by 16. So it's very easy to fit and protect it in standard rate priority shipping labels through USPS.
John Murph is saying, would you suggest framing very large oil painting and then shipping them? Lauryn, have you ever shipped like a really big painting?
Thankfully, I haven't had to ship anything larger than the span of my hands. Once I did have to ship something under glass that was 4 feet long, and that was several $100s. I am a cheap, poor person and highly suggest rolling your art if you're selling something large, especially an oil painting. If you roll it properly and have the person that's receiving it stretch it, you do not have to scare them away with a huge price tag, because that can easily go into the thousands of dollars. And also, you don't have to take such a huge hit yourself on the cost of shipping.
I mean, my feeling, John Murph, about very large pieces in general, I really try to not ship things framed, especially if it's under glass. If I have to, I'll ship it with plexi. Because Alex, what is it like shipping framed artwork?
Yeah, it's a mess where it was actually a piece of art my brother made, but he just tried to ship it to himself. He was moving. And in the journey, the work turned out fine, but the frame and the glass was completely broken. And it was insured, but he tried for, I think, about like a year and a half before he just gave up, because it's a nightmare to get that claim filed, because they're just going to try everything they can. I'm not being cynical. It's just the truth. They're going to try everything they can to avoid paying you out that insurance you paid for.
I mean, I think in general, framing is something, for me, I just try to avoid it altogether. I just am like, the client deals with it because it's expensive and it's a pain to ship. So I just think it's something, if you can avoid it, then I definitely would. Now, Lauryn, what do we mean by this? Quote, plan for damage. What does this mean?
Oh man, you can never pack an artwork too securely. And what Clara is referencing here is this one time when I was working at the gallery where I had to send a ceramic piece to a client, and I wrapped it in a million things of bubble wrap, but I was not well versed in packing ceramics at the time, and so I thought that would be enough. And the piece broke in the mail, and the client received it all broken. And it was a huge issue trying to commission the artist to make a new similar piece for the buyer. It was just, and we had to eat the cost. It was several $100s. So really research how you should pack your artwork, plan that it's going to be all thrown around. Like the people that work at the post office, they are just trying to move boxes. They're not paying any special attention of how these things, what's inside these things generally. If you want to have really special handling, go to a particular specialized art carrier or pay for that special handling. Otherwise, just you can never be too careful packing. I don't know. Alex, has anything been, oh wait, no, you said about your brother having that damaged thing. Clara, is anything broken under your supervision?
Yep. I once had, it was a very small drawing, it's 9 by 12. And so typically what I do is I got sheets of corrugated cardboard and I put it so the cardboard sandwiches around the artwork. I put it in a bubble mailer and I figure that's good enough, right? I once shipped this piece, and I have this policy. I say to people, listen, if it's damaged, you have to take a photo of it, so I know that it's been damaged. This was like folded in half. Like somebody tried to fold this thing. I was horrified. And so now I add an extra 2 sheets of cardboard in there. It feels like overkill when you're putting it in, but it's like you just don't know what could happen to your stuff in the mail. Neil is asking, wait, so does that mean that the person receiving it, the painting, should know how to stretch canvases? Well, Lauryn, what do you do with that? Let's say you send a rolled up painting. What do you do with the client?
Well, first, you want to be speaking with the client beforehand about how they want to receive the artwork, because in my experience, I think a lot of artists experience, your client's going to be paying for a portion, at least a portion of the shipping, usually all of the shipping. So they might prefer the cheaper option of having it all rolled up. I can say that that person does not need to know how to stretch the canvas themselves. They can, if someone's buying my artwork and they probably have some bit of a collection at this point and know a framer or know enough artists that know a framer that can do that kind of work. So that's another cost factor to add in there.
We have another comment from Neil, who is asking also, who pays for the shipping, the artist or the client? Or, as we're asking here, should you offer free shipping? What do you do, Alex?
For me, I kind of do a sneaky combination of all of them together, where in the charging for the work, if I'm doing it remotely, I kind of automatically include what I estimate the shipping cost will be in the initial price of the artwork. So it's kind of sneaky, but it's like free shipping, adding on a little bit to the price. Now, again, I have to stress the size of my work is smaller than, Lauryn, like the work that you do, that you're dealing with, where for me, the shipping cost is always negligible. I can go above and beyond with protecting it and securing it and everything, and it will still run me less than $30, which is incredible. So when I think of that sale of that artwork, I am more than happy to cover that cost of shipping. However, for you two, I'd be really curious about, as the work gets bigger and larger and offering free shipping becomes much more of a generous gift, I'd imagine that changes.
Yeah, definitely. In my case, for my smaller things, I often go through Etsy, which has this free shipping thing built in. So you have to build it into your prices if it's over $35 or something like that. So I kind of do the same thing as you in that case, where I boost the price just a little bit, because I know that will eat some of my ends or some of that profit. But for the larger work, I offer a series of things that they can do. A lot of people are within my driving vicinity who buy my artwork, and I travel a lot around the Northeast. So sometimes I will offer to bring the artwork over at another point if they're within like 200 miles, because that is cheaper than shipping the actual artwork and takes less time than building a crate for the actual artwork. Otherwise, they have to pay the cost of shipping that artwork, because it gets so expensive so fast. Clara, what about you?
I don't know. Maybe I'm not as sneaky as you guys. I just make them pay for everything. Like, I never give free shipping. And what I typically do, which we'll show you guys at the end, is I calculate the shipping cost in advance. And then I tack on however much the packing supplies cost, and then a little bit more just for the handling. Because the thing is, I've shipped a lot of stuff internationally, and international shipping is not cheap. And I just can't eat the cost. And I don't know. I don't want to be bothered to be thinking about that when I'm painting, unlike Alex, who's able to somehow multitask at the same time. Let's talk about packing supplies, because you would think that this is pretty simple, but actually it's not. And there's a lot of packing supplies that I think are hidden secrets that are really good to know about. So let's go through some of the logistics of that. And my first suggestion is that if you can, I would stock packing supplies and order a big crate of tubes instead of, I've done this, do that late night run to Staples in the middle of the night to get that one tube that you have to buy.
Mm-hmm.
Alex, do you stock shipping supplies or do you just sort of buy one by one?
What I don't stock the shipping supplies because I kind of never know what the size of my next piece will be specifically, but I do stock the corrugated cardboard, the foam, and the protective materials I need. So like whether Lauryn made a great point earlier of if you're delivering it to someone in person, you don't forego these items. Sure, you don't have to plan on it being traversed for multiple days, but when you're delivering to someone, I still package it with the sandwich you mentioned, Clara, of the cardboard. So I keep a lot of that on hand.
Yeah, but the thing is, sometimes people just don't have storage space. So that is another issue. Like Lauryn, I imagine in New York City, you don't have 10,000 square feet to live in.
Yeah, I had to say goodbye to my stockpile of tons of supplies. When I worked at the gallery, we had so much of the stuff on hand, and when the gallery closed, I inherited all of that stuff. Part of it was an environmental thing. I couldn't handle the idea of all of this bubble wrap just getting tossed, and I'm talking about a bubble wrap roll that was as tall as I was, and I couldn't wrap my arms around even half of it, like huge. So these things right now, they exist at my parents' house where there is a lot of space, but they want to get rid of them. So most of what I have on hand right now is mailers like Alex and plastic sheeting and things that I can fit in the closet that roll up really, really small or flatten really, really easily.
We have a very sad sob story from AJ, who says, I broke my ceramic piece when it was too dry. I dropped it and it broke in pieces. Had to make a whole new concept because of deadlines. I think we all have a story like this. In fact, did you guys know I once had my project confiscated by public safety at RISD? It's because I was being an idiot and I put my plaster pieces into the oven to try to dry them out. So of course they got like really mad at me and took my pieces. I was asking for it though. That was totally my fault. Alex, where do you buy your supplies? Do you order or do you just pick it up at the store?
A lot of it, I go to office supply stores to get things like the bubble wrap and the mailers. I honestly get the corrugated cardboard from the same art supply stores that I get the paper. Because in my mind, it's cheap, if not comparable. I'm just getting cardboard. And also, I like the money going to the art supply store for every little thing that I can. If the art supply store sold bubble wrap, I would get it there too.
Wow.
Lauryn, where do you get your supplies?
I'm not like Alex. I know that's the moral thing that I should do, but I get a lot of my bubble wrap type things from Uline because you can get it in bulk for comparatively a lot less money. And this is, again, a holdover from the gallery. We had an account and we would get all of these things at once, and then it would last 6 months, and then we would do another order. For things that are like plastic labeling type stuff, I go to this website that's called Plastic Sheeting or plasticcontainers.com, something like that. And they have all different sizes, and I'll just get a bunch of those.
Yeah, I use Uline too because I don't know. I love containers. Like, you guys ever go to the Container Store? Like, I could spend all day there. Like, I just love boxes and containers. And so Uline to me is like this little paradise, and they ship in bulk. So they're very, very easy. All right.
Honestly,
so let's go through some of these material recommendations. Lauryn, I've never used glassine before. What do you use this for?
That's so funny. Glassine's such a big painter's thing. It's this archival parchment paper type stuff, and you use it as the first barrier between your painting and the outside world. You know, in my head, the whatever that first barrier is, whether it's craft paper or glassine, hopefully it's not going to be on the painting that long, so you're not really going to have acidic damage. But I know in storing work in particular, it's really nice to have that over the work long term because the work doesn't get dusty, and which acrylic paint will take up a lot of dust. and you can rest assured that the canvas and the paint will not have any acid damage over time.
Blue painter's tape. Why don't you explain the miracle of blue painter's tape to people, Alex?
It's fantastic. I use it to wrap the covering over the watercolor paper onto the board. I use it to connect the boards, either blue or the white artist painter's tape. I pretty much use it to secure the whole thing because of a lot of what Lauryn was mentioning, the acid-free quality of it. And also, it's easy to remove, and it doesn't matter if I'm taping the actual artwork or taping the corrugated cardboard together. I do not want it difficult to open. I also have this fear of if the corrugated cardboard is sealed shut with packing tape, I don't want whoever ordered it to try to open that with a pair of scissors and accidentally cut the artwork in half.
I do want to make a note that the blue painter's tape and masking tape, even though they feel the same, they are not the same thing. Painter's tape is acid-free. The masking tape is not. I've learned that the hard way.
That is such a good...
And masking tape sticks. Like, it does not peel off remotely as easily.
Yeah, that tacky residue left over.
Oh, it's horrible, especially when it gets hot. It just like... Ugh.
All right. Now, there are many different types of packing tape. And of course, you guys can use whatever you want. I find the tape dispenser really, really helpful because if you're packaging a lot of things, it's a big pain to have to like pick off the heavy duty packing tape and everything. So I always have one of those. I happen to like the heavy duty packing tape because the regular packing tape, some of it's like kind of flimsy and not very good. And so I think it's worth it. I don't know, Lauryn, does it matter to you, the type of packing tape?
Yeah, I prefer the heavy packing tape. I've ruined my fingernails trying to get the roll of lighter packing tape to actually open. You can never find the opening to it. You'll spin it around like 20 times and still not be able to find where it starts. I feel like you're going crazy. Also, those tape dispenser guns or whatever you call them, they're invaluable. They would constantly disappear at the gallery because everybody would just steal them and take them home. Then we'd have to order a new one.
Neil is asking, should I invest in painter's tape? I'm still in high school. What do you think, Alex?
Yes. I'm saying this because I know I used to stretch my watercolor paper with masking tape, and then I'd be so frustrated when I'd pull the masking tape away and half of my painting would go with it. So yes, I would invest in painter's tape. And it also comes in white if you don't want the striking blue painter's tape.
No, the blue's the best.
Nah, it messes with your color. You get all wiggly.
So let's talk bubble wrap. Lauryn, I think you have spent more time with bubble wrap than me and Alex. Any suggestions? Because they have like the baby bubble wrap. They have the big one. I don't know if you have strong feelings about that.
Yeah, actually, I kind of do. I don't use the ones that have the super big bubbles because in a couple of experiences I've had, if they touch the painting surface, they will cause dents in the painting if you wrap it too tightly, which is crazy. So the little stuff is a little bit more evenly distributed, and I like to wrap my paintings when I'm shipping. I'll wrap them at least twice in the bubble wrap. So they have 2 layers on either side, and you want to always seal the edge on the back, because if you seal it on the front, again, since it's uneven, you're packing things really tightly, it could cause a dent in the painting. So there are a lot of cool little nuances with bubble wrap. I would say always save your bubble wrap if you get it from somewhere else, because bubble wrap is terrible for the environment and you go through it so quickly. So I'm always cautious about that.
Bubble mailers, I love you. These are the greatest thing ever. They're so easy. I don't know about you, Alex, but I love peeling off the sticky thing and going like, that's so nice and secure.
It's so good. And yeah, these are so great because, again, the asterisks of I am so blessed with the size that I make my work in, that these make it so easy. Yeah, Clara, when you were talking about shipping your print, same method. You coat it up with the cardboard because, yeah, these... I think when you mentioned your work being damaged, that's the biggest risk with these bubble mailers, is that false sense of security. These are not bulletproof. These are not ultimate protection. You still need to protect your work, but they do make it a lot easier.
Well, and I would also say you have to think about at what point does the artwork get big enough that it's a bad idea to use a bubble mailer. I think the longest I usually ship in a mailer is like 14 inches. And then beyond that, I'll get a tube or something else, because the wider it gets, the more likely it is to be bent. Although you can be crazy like me and use 6 sheets of corrugated cardboard, that works too. But yeah, the bubble mailers are really helpful. Chipboard sheets. Lauryn, this was your choice. Can you explain what you use these for?
Yeah, this is kind of the same reason as Alex uses them, where I will sandwich I'll sandwich the artwork between a few of these to keep everything from bending, because some postal people like to just totally bend the artwork, and I don't know why, if they're trying to fit it into a little box or something. It seems like they go out of their way to do it sometimes. So you want to double up on these and make sure it's all secure. Sometimes I won't buy them. I will just cut them from other boxes and chipboard sheets that I have. It saves me a trip to the store.
We have some strong feelings about packing supplies in the chat. C. Cantrell saying some bubble wrap won't pop and is no fun. Blue Will Spirit says, lately I've been seeing, quote, air packets from recycled plastic filled with air. Okay, you guys, it's time to confess. When you get stuff in the mail, do you save the packing stuff or do you throw it out? Alex?
That's a great question. The air packets that Blue Wolf Spirit is mentioning, I instantly jump on them. If the bubble wrap is nice and big, I'm sorry, spam. If the bubble wrap is nice and big, I pop it. But if it's small enough, yeah, I save it.
Yeah.
Lauryn, do you save packing material or do you just toss it?
I save all packing material, and I will, even though we've talked all about making sure that your artwork looks really nice and well packed for whoever's getting it, I admit I will use the grossest, like 5 times used mailers over again, because it's an environment thing. I don't know why it gets me so bad for this. I'll black everything out. I will make little designs on it, make it look pretty, but I will reuse it until there are holes in it.
Yeah.
And I like the suggestion from Joey, who's saying you can also get lots of scrap chipboard from your local printers in your area once you make connections. Yeah, like I had this framer and he used to save me all this mat board, like all the scraps. And it was really valuable for a lot of different projects that I was doing. Now, okay, this is my favorite item, all right? And I feel silly buying these pre-cut sheets of corrugated cardboard, but they're so easy. I used to do this thing where I'd be like, oh, I don't need those. I can just save boxes and just cut them when I need them, but they're never the right size. And so these are great because I think about in advance, okay, I have a 9x12 painting. That means I need corrugated cardboard that's this big. It's just so easy. Alex, do you bother to buy these or do you just cut up old boxes?
I don't. If my shipping game upgrades, I can see how that would be super convenient. But just the life I'm living now, I come across a lot of cardboard boxes. They come into work at my day job. Actually, I ordered a photo print from a friend of mine, and it was larger. So I was like, oh, this is nice corrugated cardboard that I can use to ship art. So yeah, I raccoon and scrounge a lot of the cardboard that I use.
Lauryn, I'm pretty sure you've gone through your fair share of these cardboard corner protectors.
Oh, I am obsessed with them. It's a little ridiculous. They are so time consuming to make. I will do an all-nighter making these cardboard corners for just 8 pieces of artwork. I mean, that's what, 32 corners? They take a little time to make, but they do help protect the work. So I don't have to repaint the edges of all my things, because you'd be surprised at how banged up stuff gets when you're putting it in your car, when you're trying to shove it in the van, when you're storing it. Yeah, even just storing it, stuff rubs up against each other the wrong way. So these little corners I will make by cutting up old cardboard boxes, taking a masking tape or painter's tape or whatever, and and putting them together piece by piece by piece so they fit perfectly together and perfectly on the artwork. You do have to measure the thickness of your artwork, the thickness of your painting before making them though, so you make sure that they fit nice and snug.
Yeah, this is the one item that I really don't think you need to buy. I mean, you certainly can buy them, but they're so easy to make from old boxes. So for me, it's not really worth the cost. These are my favorite. These archival plastic sleeves are just so satisfying. Do you use these, Alex?
I've never heard of them until this stream, so I'm really excited to have these as my new favorite thing.
Well, they're just so perfect, and you just peel the thing off and you seal it, and it's so nice because other times if I don't have it, I'll sometimes wrap the artwork in newsprint, but it's just not as satisfying because you can't just slide it in. Lauren, do you use these?
I do. This is the one environment thing that I totally just, I splurge on these. There is this real collector's baseball card fetishism to those sealed containers. I sell, since I sell a lot of cards, a lot of greeting cards, I just stick them all in with the envelope and I carefully fold it over and pull that little piece of adhesive protector off, and then I can put it in the bubble wrap or the cardboard or whatever else. But I do agree that people get a real pleasurable experience of opening it up and sliding the artwork out.
John Murph is saying, where can you buy those instead of making them? I'm assuming you're mentioning those cardboard corners, John Murph. I'm sure Uline has them. I think a frame store would probably have them. So they're pretty easy to track down.
I've got a good hack for those. If you ever buy cheap frames from a place, say like Michael's, I bought a lot of cheap frames from Michael's. They always have all of those on them. I save all of them.
All right, let's talk about tubes. I think, Alex, somebody told you to never ship in a tube once?
Yeah, and it's funny, the more I learn and grow as an artist and talking to you two, I'm learning that that's very medium specific. Where for the way I use watercolor and gouache, it can be very thick. And so if you try to roll that, it'll quickly crack and sometimes even flake off. So that's one of the reasons why I work small and ship small. It's because if I work and ship big, I can't roll that. I've got to make a big 24 by 36 flat piece to mail it. So I have never used tubes for that reason.
Lauren, you ever use tubes?
I love tubes. I learned about tubes from my dad, who you guys already kind of know is a mail artist, postal artist, MAIL, and will ship all sorts of weird things in the mail. Oftentimes those are super collaged posters. So we have a lot of little tubes, big tubes. My favorite are the Sono tubes, which are enormous, super thick. And they're not only good for shipping things, I use them for canvas, which is so easy to stick in a tube. It doesn't have the same issues with staying in that rolled up form. It just relaxes super easily. So my favorite are the Sono tubes, where you can take very large artwork and roll it around, and that will keep it well protected. The only thing that you have to worry about is making sure that you roll the painting outside with the object or the painting on the outside rather than the inside, because otherwise if you unroll it from after rolling it where the image is on the inside, it will the paint will crack. You'll get cracks in your painting.
I love these tubes. I mean, I'm lucky because I have a lot of etchings, things that do not flake off and are super easy to roll and put into a tube. My one piece of advice with these tubes is that the wider the tube, the less potential damage there could be to the artwork, because the less you have to roll it, the less tightly it's rolled, the better it is for the artwork. So typically, if I'm using a tube, it's usually at least 5 inches wide, if not more than that. I don't tend to buy the ones that are like 1 inch because they're just way too tight. AJ is saying, I heard from Baumgartner, they have a YouTube channel, they're a conservator, that you're supposed to roll the paintings layer out so that the paint doesn't compress and chip. I've heard that too. Lauryn,
Yeah.
do you know about that?
That was what I was trying to explain, except AJ was much more succinct about it and clear about it than I was. Yeah, when you roll it the outside way, where the image is on the outside, then even if there is any kind of cracking or whatever, the image, when you unroll it, is going to be pressed in, so you wouldn't ever see any cracking or any of that.
Now, Lauryn, what do you use plastic sheeting for?
The plastic sheeting is a protective layer in case you are worried about water damage. I have lived in several places and have had several accidents where a pipe has broken and has ruined my stored artwork, even though I have a wooden scaffolding that I keep the artwork inside. And so having plastic sheeting just gives you some extra protection from the elements, even if you're in your own home.
Mm-hmm.
Alex, you have a dream about brown craft paper, don't you?
I would love when y'all walk into the art supply store and they have that big wall of brown craft paper. You can just take as much as you want and rip it off. I want one of those in my basement. Before I get too deep into this, I want to echo what Lauryn was saying about the plastic wrap. And yeah, even like I'm living in an area with flood risk, so that's just a good thing to wrap your stored artwork with at home. But the brown paper, the reason I love it so much for shipping it, same with the sheets of newsprint too, is it's the good aesthetic like cherry on top, where you can use all the blue paint and the corrugated cardboard, but then just wrapping it like a Christmas present inside of its mailer. It's just the nice little touch that it needs.
Okay, so let's talk really briefly about calculating postage, because what I typically do is I get like a kitchen scale and I always weigh the artwork in the packaging to calculate the postage. And if you guys don't know, this is so handy. The USPS, they have a postage price calculator. So you can actually put in Sweden for a tube that weighs 1 pound. How much is it going to cost? So this is very helpful when you're trying to set prices. And this also leads us to talking about shipping policies. These are so important to have really clear directions in your online shop. For example, Alex, returns. Why do you need to tell people what your return policy is?
Because you're never going to know until it happens. And when it happens, you're going to want to have a policy in place that they knew about already. You don't want to wake up one day and see an email that just says, hey, your painting came looks different than the photo, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm returning, I want my money back. And if you've never discussed that before, then you're out of luck. Like, what are you going to do? So it's really good to have that clarification of what your return policy is. And you can determine that for yourself, but it's important to set it out in black and white.
And also to not change it later, because I think sometimes people are in a big rush to set up their shop. They say, oh, that's fine, I'll do it later. And I'm like, that's so confusing, because what if people buy something and they come back and you change something? It's just, you got to be pretty confident that this is what you want to set as your shipping policies. Like, for example, I explain to people in my shop, I don't ship on holidays or weekends because I don't want to be bothered by that. People don't care about that as long as you tell them up front. Like, Lauryn, do you have particular policies that are important to you about like who pays custom fees and stuff like that? Is that important?
Yeah, actually, my biggest thing about shipping policies, because I've gotten burned on this before, is to always give yourself padding in your policies. So if you think it's going to take you 1 to 3 days to ship something, give yourself 5 to 7 days on your shipping policy, because, and I learned this from work actually, people, if you put a longer time period and you send it within 1 to 3 days, people get super excited. They think, oh, wow, they really cared about me. They were even faster than their shipping policy said. Whereas if you put down 1 to 3 days, but then you accidentally miss it, something comes up, and then you send it late. You could have just put it on the 5 to 7 days and it would have been fine. And now the person's waiting for their piece. So that is my one tip.
I would also say you always include the invoice anytime you ship anything. Why should you do that, Alex?
2 reasons. One is just the etiquette of it. It makes it more official, more clean for them. And yeah, they're not going to frame that invoice. They're going to toss it as well. But it finalizes the sale. It does that reminder of like that was that professional transaction, keeps track of it, that it has been delivered, this is completed. It conducts that, and it shows that professionalism in your work when you're selling it.
Insurance, our favorite topic, right, Lauryn? What is your thought about insurance?
Oh man, it depends on what the piece is, honestly. This is kind of like what we were talking about earlier with creating your artwork and trying to figure out when it's worth it to actually ship something. Because insurance can add a lot of cost to your shipping, but it can sometimes be very difficult to make your case that it is the shipper's fault rather than you not packing your artwork well enough. Insurance people do not want to pay out insurance money for your stuff. So if it's a smaller item, if it's less than $1,000, it depends. A lot of times will not insure things. If it's over that, yeah, I think it's worth putting that money in.
Maybe I'm crazy. I never insure anything. On the other hand, though, I've never really shipped anything that valuable. But yeah, you have to weigh the obligations and is this really going to be worth your time? And I do think it's okay if you're shipping like a $50 drawing. I really think it's fine. I mean, just think about all the hassle it would be to argue over that. And then is it really worth it for your time? Shipping profiles. I love these. They have these on Etsy, probably on other platforms, but basically what you can do is you can say, okay, if I have an artwork and it measures 22 by 28 inches and it's shipping to the US, it's going to cost this much. And so now when I put a new listing on, I don't have to calculate everything. I just say, oh, we're going to use this shipping profile A, and it puts everything automatically. Really worth it. It's a lot of work in the beginning to set up, but I think it's really, really worth your time. Now, you have to figure out what stuff you got to buy. So, for example, in this image, I have to know that, okay, if I'm shipping a wax sculpture on the right, I need bubble wrap, I need packing tape. And so this is a lot of organizational stuff, right, Alex? I mean, how do you organize this?
It doesn't become as big of a problem when you remind yourself of what the goal is: to protect the work first and foremost, get it to the client safely, and second, make it look good. You're still an artist, make it look professional and well taken care of. And that to me always makes it so much easier, especially when I was first figuring out how to do all this, is just think, okay, I know that I'm caring about it and I can't trust anyone else to care about it except for me and the one purchasing it. So how do I protect it in the way from anyone else who interacts with it who just thinks it's just another piece of mail?
Okay, the next thing we want to talk about is, Lauryn, did you know that PayPal is actually connected to USPS? Have you ever used this before?
No, I had no idea. Tell me more. This is so weird.
It's awesome. So basically, you just go to this website, it's paypal.com/shipnow, and it brings up this menu. So you say you want to ship to this address, and then it brings you to this browser that says create a shipping label. So basically what you can do is you can print out a shipping label and pay for it through PayPal. And it just prints out this label for you, and then you don't have to wait in line. So when I go to the post office, I just drop it off. I don't have to like sit there and wait for them to calculate and everything for me. So what you just do is you come here and then you just select the package type. In my case, it's package thick envelope. And then you go in and it gives you these little boxes. You have to put in like the package weight. You have to put in the package dimensions. So you add that all in. You do have to mark a regular package if it's a tube. So just remember that. And I do think that they have like a little help bubble. You can click on that as well. And then you just click calculate shipping cost, and it tells you, okay, this is going to cost $7. And then there's this blue button that says confirm and pay. So then you pay through PayPal, you print your shipping label, and you just tape it. It's awesome. Like, I love using this service. I think this is just so brilliant. And this is a little trick, you guys, because the postal person got so mad at me when I did this wrong. So I went to put the label on the tube, but I didn't make it so the barcode was flat. So the barcode was like wrapped around, and they couldn't scan it. So now whenever I print these labels and I have a tube, I always make sure that the barcode is parallel to the tube length, because otherwise people get really mad at you at the post office. So let's just walk through briefly what you have to assemble to put out a package. Alex, can you maybe explain what's going on here?
Yeah, so you have your art, and then you first protect it with, Lauryn and Clara, you guys are both mentioning the archival plastic paper to put around it. And then from there, you make the corrugated cardboard sandwich to protect that, seal it together with the packing tape, not too tight because you don't want, or sorry, not too firmly because you don't want the opener to damage the artwork when they're opening it. Include that invoice, bubble mailer, and you're done.
It's pretty sweet. You can do a lot from your home. I always save shipping receipts in custom forms just as a backup. I mean, I'm lucky nothing's ever happened where I've had to produce it, but it's not hard to do. You just stick it in a little mailer and you're ready to go just in case something happens.
I've got another reason to save those too, because if you are a self-employed person that runs an art business, you can write all of those shipping things off on your taxes. And I spend so much money on shipping, so it's great.
International shipping is very helpful in that a lot of my orders on Etsy, I would say a third of them are international. I was really surprised by that. I was not expecting that. It is worth it, but it's a pain. You have to go to the post office to fill out a customs form. They take like 2 hours to fill it out. So it's time consuming, but I think if you're willing to do it, it is worth it. Like, Lauryn, have you shipped internationally?
I have a few times, and yeah, it is a super pain, and it does cost more money very quickly. But I think that the development of clients and the development of relationships with clients in other countries is super worth doing. It is a good process to learn, and it gets easier the more times you have to ship internationally.
So what you can do is use the postage price calculator. If you guys are using US Postal Service, you just have to know that first class is so much cheaper than priority. And honestly, I would not use priority unless your package is so big that they force you to use priority. There's like a certain cutoff. It's like once you get to 4 feet or something, they make you do priority. But I was traumatized. This one time I sent a tube to Germany. I think it cost me $60. So yeah, I don't recommend that very much. And then for domestic stuff or priority mail international, really good to have a tracking number. Alex, why does that matter?
It's convenient not just for you as the artist to make sure that you can keep track of it, but anytime, once you get that tracking number, share it either in an email or a phone call to the client who's receiving the art and say, hey, shipped, here's the tracking number for you so you can keep an eye on it, especially for them so they know when to arrive, when to be at home. Because actually, that's such a good point that we forgot to mention earlier. What do you guys feel about when you're shipping the art requiring a signature upon delivery?
I never do. I just rely on the tracking number, and that's always been fine. I mean, I guess if the client wanted it, I wouldn't mind doing it, but I've never really had anybody request it. I don't know, Lauryn, what do you do?
It depends on, do I know the buyer? Do I know and trust the buyer? And is it a very expensive piece of artwork, or is it something small? If it's a large piece of artwork, yes, I'll do it. If it's someone I don't know that is spending a fair amount of money, yes, I'll definitely do it. If they're paying through something like PayPal, where there are weird return type things, yeah, you want to do it.
Mhm.
AJ is saying, what even is customs? I've heard Canadians and Europeans talk about it, but it's not shipping. What is it? So it's basically a fee. So if I ship a package to France, oftentimes there's a customs fee. And this is what I do. I always make them pay for it because it is such a pain for you to have to cover that because you don't know what the fee is until it actually is at the postal service. And I've been in so many crummy situations where people are like, oh, well, I have to pay this and I didn't know. And so now I'm like, it's all up to you. Like whatever, duties, customs, anything, it's your deal. And it depends. And sometimes it gets opened by customs. I don't know the specifics of that. But yeah, I just am like, guys, you deal. I'm not going to do it. Do you ever deal with custom stuff, Lauryn?
Yeah, and what I was going to ask you, Clara, is do you put the actual dollar amount that your artwork is worth on the customs form?
Well, okay, so here's the thing. When you fill out the customs form to do international shipping, you have to write down, okay, what's in the package, what's the quantity, what's it worth. So what I always do is I just do whatever's on the invoice. So if the invoice says this person paid $100, I will say the artwork in the package is worth $100. So I just make it line up with the invoice, and that's usually easier to do. So yeah.
Cool.
Okay, our other piece of advice, ship fast, because you know what? People love it. In fact, if you guys go to my Etsy shop and you look at the reviews, almost every single review, people are like, fast shipping, yes! It's like the coolest thing on the planet if you can ship fast. Now, you can't always do that, but if you can, it's a really big plus. Alex, have you found that to make a difference?
Absolutely. And it's Lauryn mentioned this a little bit before, and it's kind of the same rule that you can see in businesses all over use it, where you order a t-shirt, you order a movie, you order what have you, allow 6 to 8 weeks for delivery, shows up in your doorstep in a week. And that is the same thing where you're so overjoyed when it beats that time. And that's that secret that you have to do when you're shipping it. Just make it, it's that final thank you of how grateful you are for that sale, for that artwork getting into the hands of the buyer. You don't want to cash that check and then let the art just collect dust on your shelf. You want to mail it. You want to get them the work that they paid for.
I do want to say, though, on that point, that if you can't get stuff out right away, you're stressing about it right now because the pandemic, don't worry about it. People do understand right now that shipping has gotten a little bit crazy, especially between countries. And in the US, we've had a lot of shipping issues. Like my personal post office, that's the one for our neighborhood, is not open on certain days and has lines around the block because of the shortages and the changes that are happening. So you just be in contact with your buyer if you do run into issues like that.
Our Prof has a podcast. It's available on Spotify and also on iTunes. And in a few minutes, Alex, Lauryn, and we're going to be hanging out in the post live streams channel in the Art Prof Discord. If you're not in our Discord, the invite link is in the video description below. And please subscribe to the Art Prof YouTube channel and join the Art Prof family. And thank you so much to our top Patreon supporters. Thank you to everybody in the chat who asked questions and filled in all of the gaps in the conversation. Thank you so much. We'll see you